So I don't know if you've ever flubbed a TEDx talk, but I sure did. This past May 2023 in Philadelphia at TEDx Jefferson U, where the theme was Redefine Possible, in my talk called Last Wishes, From Dread to a Little Delight at the End of Life. And I froze a third of the way into it. And then I picked it up for the last third, meaning I left out the whole middle. So that's just not going to do. So here's that talk from the comfort of my own home, a little bit more casual and informal, but it's the same talk, basically. Last wishes, from dread to a little delight at the end of life, in its entirety. So I've been nurturing this idea about leaving last wishes before we die. This idea for over 10 years. It's a very simple idea that we leave last wishes before we die. And these last wishes are really nothing more than a list of good deeds that we'd like done in our honor. Okay, and I'm going to start off with the story that inspired this whole idea. So it's actually not remotely an original idea. I have just decided to capitalize on this idea because I think it was an awesome thing that happened. And this is that story. In 2012, a young man from Kentucky named Aaron Collins had written down some last wishes before he died. He wanted his family to leave a really awesome tip. Those were his words, not 25%, but $500 for a pizza. So his family did this. His brother, his sister, and his mom, they went to their local pizza place and they gave their waitress $500 in cash as her tip for their pizza. And of course, it made her day. And of course, they explained why, that this was their brother's, their son's last wish. They were smart enough to videotape this exchange and they put it up on YouTube, not hoping to become famous. They were just sharing it with their friends and family who couldn't be there. So it went around, people found it, and within a couple of months, the family had received over $60,000 that people had sent them because they were touched and inspired. Aaron's brother, Seth, wound up taking this money and taking a road trip across the country. Literally, he went to every state, leaving $500 tips for servers for pizzas. And every time telling them why, that this was his brother's Aaron's last wish. Now, when I heard this more than 10 years ago, all I could think was, why aren't we all leaving last wishes? Like, we could be changing the world if every time someone died, we got to go put some good out into the world in their honor. Like every time, like death and then a little good thing, death and then a little good thing. Like, this was just irresistible to me that we had a whole new perspective on death, that there was something good included in this terrible thing that we hate so much, and rightly so. Because death is just the worst. It's just loss and mourning and sadness, and we don't have any angle on it that's remotely positive. There's no optimistic, and then we look forward to something. It's just all a big downer. And again, of course it is. It's a terrible time. But we could change this so that there is something positive. And that something positive can be as simple as leaving last wishes. Think about it. Causes or charities you care about, people, organizations, clubs, and a good deed that could be done for them. A day volunteering at Habitat for Humanity, hosting a blood drive at your local library, or doing something more personal like fixing your neighbor's broken fence because he's been out of work a while and can't afford it. Doesn't that sound satisfying? Like, that would be a rewarding way to spend an hour thinking of good deeds you'd like done. Who doesn't like doing something nice for someone? And I can tell you, when you've done this, written down some last wishes, good deeds you'd like done, you start getting on board with your own mortality. It's kind of a magical way that happens. When you start thinking about something optimistic in association with something ordinarily pretty bad, it starts to shift. So now the bad doesn't seem quite so awful anymore. You've thought about it, had some fun. You've replaced some of that dread with a little delight, which you had never done before. Because let's face it, we avoid this whole dying thing like there's no tomorrow anyway. In fact, most people like to pretend that somehow or other we're actually going to get out of it. Like we have no idea how that could happen. A miracle? Something could come along between now and then? Like we have no idea, but we like to pretend that somehow or other maybe we'll be the first person to ever get out of dying. But since that's never happened yet, we should probably just go ahead and plan for it. So back to Aaron's story and his leaving these last wishes and what a wonderful thing happened when he did that. There were actually two other aspects to that story that were really quite remarkable. One was the transformation for his family from overwhelming sadness and grief, of course, at losing their young brother and son, to being able to feel a bit of joy. That they got to keep on sharing his story. You know, he'd almost become like a superhero in my mind anyway, because of all the good that had been done in his honor. This was the key to me. They got to keep on talking about him with a smile on their face. How often does that happen when you've lost someone really important to you at a young age? That felt really, really miraculous to me. And the second part of this story, which was kind of funny, is that all of this was possible only because Aaron himself had written down this last wish. And mind you, he wasn't thinking big, no offense, Aaron. It was just a request to do it one time. And the family was only going to do it one time. No one here was thinking big, massive legacy. But this is the power of inspiration. And this is what I have realized from this story, looking at it deeply, is I've seen that things are possible when someone has died that aren't possible at any other time. The depth of emotion, the longing for honoring and remembering. Think about it. Your favorite person or someone you've loved with all your heart, you find out they had written down a last wish? Are you not falling all over yourself to carry it out? Wild horses couldn't keep you from carrying it out. Of course. Why are we not harnessing this incredible and unique energy and putting good into the world every time someone dies? We are missing the boat. This is a special time and we can use it to make a difference. Here's two smaller examples because I really want to inspire you to get your wheels turning to see how you might be able to do something like this. I have a friend who has a last wish that she wants her friends and family to spend an afternoon at the cat shelter playing with the cats. That people love their cats is some serious business, but we knew that. So even if her friends and family just do it one time, it was a good day for those cats and for the people who work at the shelter. But maybe more people go and it becomes a bit of an event. Or someone decides to make a financial donation to the shelter while they're there. Or someone decides that they're going to go once a week now or once a month because they enjoyed it so much. There's always the potential for something to become more. Another person I know is a regular volunteer at his local homeless shelter. And instead of a funeral, he wants his people to throw a party for the homeless. Because when did they ever get a party? That's where his heart is. What an honor for these people at the shelter that he cares so much about and is so devoted to, as well as it being a privilege for his friends and family to carry out this party, this extravaganza that you know will be completely unforgettable for everyone involved. Are you starting to see that we have some influence over the course of events at the end of our lives? You too can pull an Aaron Collins' last wish and know that something good is going to happen at your departure. Your fairly certain demise can come with a little exhilaration. There can be an optimistic, and then you can lay the groundwork for something to look forward to for people, an engaging participation in life instead of simply the ending of it. I have a vision of a world where this is just the norm, that we all leave last wishes, and we do it with the same enthusiasm that kids have making their Christmas list for Santa. We're excited. We're not letting the Grim Reaper have the last word. We're tickled to know that we're putting some happiness into the world when our life is done. So my suggestion is carve out some time. Sit down, an hour should do it, and make a list of last wishes for your people to carry out in your honor. Write them down, that's very important. They can't just live in your head for future reference. And have real fun with it. If you're not smiling, you're not doing it right. 1 wish, 2 wishes, or 15 of them. Big, small, juicy, half-baked, weird, quirky, meaningful, whatever. They're all good. It doesn't matter. What's important is the engagement you're setting the stage for, the promise of something positive. Because if in every time of loss we had something generous or kind or big-hearted to take part in, the circle of life would seem a bit bigger. Endings could come with beginnings and smiles. Let's redefine what's possible at the end of life to include a little joy. Let's make the end of life more life-affirming.